Again, write this down. Defense Department Directive 1404.10. And this is to establish a giant civilian military, as big as the military, 1 million person, and it says that you will be deployed under draft. It says that it's compulsory domestically and internationally overseas, so dual use. Defense Department announces civilian expeditionary workforce, and then we have links throughout the article to the Department of Defense announcements. Outside of Congress, they've just done this. Here's the Washington Post. Pentagon to detail troops to bolster domestic security. Military expects to have 20,000 uniformed troops on the streets of the United States. Also in the Army Times, they announced that for PR purposes, they would have military, Army, and Marines running checkpoints for DUIs. You're not for drunks, are you? This is how they condition you to accept it. That they would also have them with the jaws of life, and it showed it on the Army own website, them out helping cut people out of cars. Well, you're not against the military fighting forest fires, cutting people out of cars, doing drug interdiction, doing anti-terror. See, that's just the cover story. Now the Army War College admits, it's been all over the news, they're preparing to, quote, engage the American people, and that their new mission under Northcom is suppressing the American people. They're teaching police that there's new white Al-Qaeda, and that Americans are about to rebel nationwide. That's mainstream news, that they're preparing to crush the American people. Pentagon to detail troops. In fact, zoom in on this camera. I'll use this as a close shot. Some of these articles you don't have in the computer in there. Pentagon to detail troops to bolster domestic security. I'll remind you the Gonzales memos and U memos just got released where they said they were going to ban free speech in the United States, use troops on the streets of America, and set up a dictatorship. And that's being continued by Obama. There's the Sydney Morning Herald. Foundations are in place for martial law in the United States. British News is announcing that their government is preparing for martial law with the police and military against the British people. Sarkozy warns of social unrest because they've engineered it. In the IMF World Bank documents released in December of 2001, made widely public by the BBC in 2002. Just Google IMF World Bank documents leaked. It said they institute riots. First they collapse society, then there's rioting, then that's their excuse to bring in martial law. Then they basically repossess everything. And I could just go on and on and on. There's another story. U.S. troops asked if they would shoot at American citizens. Those are all public surveys they're being given. They're doing urban warfare drills for gun confiscation all over the country and admitting they're going door to door, asking if they can search people's homes as part of a drill and blocking off the streets. Towns in Arkansas, Oklahoma, all over the country, this has been on CNN, and they say it like it's a good thing when they report it, are locking down the cities even during the daylight hours, searching everybody's cars, making you go through checkpoints. You can Google that. Towns declare martial law, and they've been advised to do that by the feds. All of that is happening. But let's go back to the root of this. Let's go back to when they first set up this plan, and they said they would use riots and the collapse of society as the cover for that, and that came out. That's just the cover. With Oliver North in testimony before a joint session, a joint committee of Congress, with Congressman Jack Brooks bringing it up and being told to shut up. You ready with that clip, guys? Okay, here is that clip for folks.
Colonel North, in your work at the NSC, were you not assigned at one time to work on plans for the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster? Mr. Chairman.
I believe that question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area, so may I request that you not touch upon that, sir.
I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution. And I was deeply concerned about it and wondered if that was the area in which he had worked. I believe that it was.
May I most respectfully request that that matter not be touched upon at this stage. If we wish to get into this, certain arrangements can be made for an executive session.
And tragically, the only member who got close was Jack Brooks, and he was stopped by the chairman.
And you can go watch Henry B. Gonzalez saying the government was going to use staged attacks, staged crises to bring in martial law. It got exposed. It was stopped. Every time we stop them from doing this, then they go, oh, look, it didn't exist because we stopped it. You stopped it. Now, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to get into Glenn Beck saying none of this exists. And I have clip after clip after clip of Congress now. Congress threatened with martial law if they didn't pass the banker takeover bill. Now $9.7 trillion stolen, according to AP and Bloomberg. This is a banking hijacking. We have their own blueprints for it. Okay? This is the facts. Waging war on corruption. Thank you for joining us today. We're here live Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on the AM and FM dial, simulcast on shortwave satellite, and always the web at Infowars.com. We have the free podcast downloaded by more than 125,000 people a day for free at Infowars.com and growing by about a few thousand a week. Okay. So, if Glenn Beck wants to know if the FEMA camps are real or not, all he has to do is go to the Army War College, the Army.mil website, the Army Times, and they say, and it's been all over the Phoenix newspapers, the police say they're ready to work with the military against the people, that their new mission is fighting the American people physically, that they're acclimating us by having troops on the streets through PR, at the checkpoints for DUIs, against citizens, violating posse comitatus, helping people get out of car wrecks. It's all PR. And to condition the troops and police that it's okay. And more evidence, other exhibits are Police State 2000, Police State 2 the Takeover, Police State 3 Total Enslavement, all free on the web. Films I made in the late 90s. And I went to urban warfare drills where the Marines and Army would hire role players who would scream, I'm an American, please, no, not the camp. They would do mock executions of American citizens. The Marines let us videotape mock interrogations of supposed U.S. citizens. They would set them down and say, where are you from? I'm from San Francisco. Where'd you get the helmet? Where'd you get the weapons? So this is why I've been raising the alarm, because they have been gearing up for this and telling the locals it was for training overseas. And they do this over and over and over and over again. And for folks watching the simulcast at prisonplanet.tv, we're showing video of the Marines. We're going to show you a mock FEMA camp. They also had foreign troops there assisting. We have video of a cooperative nugget in the mid-1990s where foreign troops admittedly were training in the U.S. to put Americans in camps. That is the camp right there you see on your screen. So it's all there for anybody that wants to know the truth. Now remember, under PDD 51, signed a few years ago by Bush that Obama's expanded and continued, they state that Congress has no authority during emergencies and the president's basically absolute dictator. When Congress wanted to see the detailed documents, they were told you're not allowed to under national security when Congress is co-equal to the president. That is dictatorship. Let's go ahead and play the clip, 26,000 pastors for martial law, continuity of government, because the first half of the clip is a newscast on that. We're going to play that later. We're going to play right now Representative Peter DeFazio, Democrat, Oregon, and then later the chairman himself asked for the documents, was told no. So the Congress can't be trusted to be part of this. With the foreign troops, they can know all about PDD 51. Here it is.
Back the balance of this time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Oregon rise? Without objection.
Most Americans would agree that it would be prudent to have a plan to provide for the continuity of government and the rule of law in case of a devastating terrorist attack or natural disaster. A plan that provides for the cooperation, the coordination, and continued functioning of all three branches of the government. The Bush administration tells us they have such a plan. They introduced a little sketchy public version that's clearly inadequate and doesn't really tell us what they have in mind. But they said, don't worry, there's a detailed classified version. But now they've denied the entire Homeland Security Committee of the United States House of Representatives access to their so-called detailed plan to provide for continuity of government. They say, trust us. Trust us, the people who brought us Katrina, to be competent in face of a disaster. Trust us, the people who brought us warrantless wiretapping and other excesses eroding our civil liberties. Trust us. Maybe the plan just really doesn't exist, and that's why they won't show it to us. I don't know. Or maybe there's something there that's outrageous. The American people need their elected representatives to review this plan for the continuity of government.
Gentleman's time has expired.
All right. Now, when we come back, I'm going to play a clip. And we have Senator Inhofe, we have Congressman Brad Sherman, and others that we interviewed here on air, or we played clips of on air, both from Congress and here, where they were told martial law will be declared if you don't pass the banker bailout unread on October 3rd, 2008. And then they bait and switched and said it was going to be for the subprime mortgages, and then they said, we're not going to tell you, and it wasn't $700 billion. They just picked a really big number. That's a quote. And it's now $9.7 trillion, 5.5 months into this. Do the math. October, November, December, January, February. 5 months. 5 months and change into this.